Very warm welcome to you and thank you so much for joining us on Economics 101. Now, Treasury remains confident that Zimbabwe's economy will grow by 3.8% this year, driven by strong performances in the mining, construction, agriculture, despite challenges such as electricity. Now, Finance and Economic Development Minister Professor Mthuli Ncube said the harmonized elections expected sometime this year should not have any adverse effect or impact on the economy. In studio today to help me unpack these and more issues around the economy, I'm joined by economic analyst Mr. Persistence Gwanyanya to discuss the 2023 year in which the election will be taking place, but in relation to Zimbabwe's economic growth. Gwanyanya, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me on the program. Compliments for the new year.
Definitely, same to you. Looking forward to our discussion. Now, may you outline the link between business and politics?
I think as we progress towards an election this year, the temptation has always been, as usual, to link the two. That business affects politics and politics also affects business.
Right.
But in our situation, I think reading from the past, there's always been concern about the effect of politics on business, specifically how politicians would then incline towards populist policies that has gotten us to where we are as a country today. So people can be forgiven for thinking that as we go into 2023 or this year into an election, the economy is expected to be affected by politics. But as I look at things currently, if you ask me how do I view 2023,
Right.
I would say to you, from the look of things currently, it looks like it's just a continuation of 2022. So what are we continuing with in 2023? In the last half of 2022, you have seen a deliberate action by government to intervene to calm the markets. And we emerged in 2023 now well knowledgeable about the power of government to influence the direction of the economy.
Right.
And also to influence stability in the economy.
Talking about stability, one can't help but acknowledge that in any nation during an election period, one goes through an economic depression. Zimbabwe currently finding itself, as you've clearly articulated, in a stable, calm position. Some would argue the calm before the storm. What do you think should be done in order to ensure that we at least maintain this calmness that we do have, but also speak towards potential economic growth?
At this point in time, in the past, as we approach an election, the markets would have spun out of control. And we would have started to see some shocks in the economy, some major disruptions in the economy, which arguably or evidently we are not seeing currently. And like I've indicated to you, it could also be because of the interventions by Treasury and the Reserve Bank. Despite the depreciation, some depreciation of currency in the last quarter or during the festive season that we experienced as an economy last year, the exchange rate or the velocity of money, that is the rate at which the money is exchanging hand, has also remained within control. that tells you a story. It could be because traditionally our exchange rate during this period of the year, it is normally at its weakest point. That's where anything that happens could have some significant impact on depreciation of the exchange rate. But as Treasury was also winding up their books and paying suppliers and contractors during that period, where the markets, at a time when the markets, the official markets, had taken a break, it could be the depreciation of the currency could also be linked to that. But it has remained within acceptable levels.
Talking about acceptable levels, would you then acknowledge or consider that the business sector's confidence in government is what's being currently reflected by the markets managing an element of stability, considering that they contribute significantly to the volatility of foreign currency in Zimbabwe? Of the foreign exchange rate, rather, in Zimbabwe.
I think the confidence I would want to link the confidence to the reading of some measure of seriousness on part of government, unlike in the past.
How far back can we attribute that level of seriousness? Can we go back as far as TSP, austerity? Like, how far back do we go to address exactly the reflection of seriousness that you speak about?
But I think in earnest, the last half of 2022, government took some deliberate measures, serious deliberate measures, and to bite the bullet, especially on the interest rate.
I want to talk about biting the bullet after this break. We'll be right back with more Economics 101. Stay tuned. A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining us on the second segment of Economics 101. We're looking at the Zimbabwean economy as we head towards the 2023 harmonized election. Here in studio to help me unpack is Persistence Gwanyanya, who is an economic analyst. Now, before we took the break, you're referring to an analogy of government biting the bullet and taking the brunt of what is required to ensure that we are in the calm, confident waters that we are currently floating in. Please, indulge us.
Would you have even imagined that going into an election, the government or RBZ and the Monetary Policy Committee would maintain an interest rate of 100% for the productive sector
Certainly not.
and 200% for the non-productive sectors of the economy? This could be despite the usual political pressures, could be a serious indication of a breakaway from the past.
Is government putting business first?
I think the best way to look at whether it is putting business first is to look at the environment that government is trying to promote.
Right.
Is this environment government trying to promote an environment that supports business?
It seems to be rather conducive so far.
What temptations is the government resisting to promote that environment.
Right.
So of late, we've seen some measure of resistance by government to certain temptations, populist in nature, especially towards an election that would work against an environment that is supportive of viable business operations.
According to your assertion, and correct me if I've misunderstood, government has taken a new approach of being able to ensure that economic stability is at the forefront of engaging Zimbabwe's drive of going forward, as opposed to the previous positions, which were to be able to popularize economically viable decisions that would then speak to the collective.
Clearly a new approach from government.
Right.
We have seen that a new approach, and the approach is evident. But you may want to agree with me that it cannot happen all at one time.
Sure.
It's a process. But the fact government has moved in quickly to deal with situations that were getting out of hand, and situations that were ignored in the past, and situations that normally this period no one would want to look at them for the sake of promoting populism.
Right.
Yes.
Let me put this question slightly differently, Mr. Gwanyanya. Political parties, in essence, at this particular period, find themselves engaging heavily in campaigning. This is where we see a lot of the resources being put towards. Are we saying that in this particular assertion, we may see a situation where the campaign drive is no longer as significant as is a collective stabilization drive to Zimbabwe's economy?
That's why I'm saying it is a breakaway from the past.
Understood.
It is a breakaway from the past because you only win the hearts of the people through your deeds and real deliverables.
Interesting strategy that one could take. What measures should government put in place to maintain investor confidence and also the business community at large?
I think the biggest gift, the largest gift that the government can give to its citizens and as an indicator to the investors is a stable environment. A stable environment is a precondition for growth and development. A stable environment is a precondition for the economy getting back on rail, is a precondition for the recovery that we seek as an economy.
Right. Now, also looking at meeting some of the requirements of the economy, Vision 2030 has been put forward, looking at Zimbabwe becoming a middle to upper income economy by that particular time. What are the projected milestones that have been met to be able to at least meet that? Also considering that NDS1 has been implemented up until the year 2025.
The milestones relate to infrastructure development.
Right.
That is something tangible that we can see. But the sacrifice that was also made was on stability. As we're talking and hyping the efforts by government to restore stability, it must also tell you that we are coming from a position of instability. But what would have occasioned that instability is some measure of aggression on infrastructure at a point where, or at a time where, our circumstances, being excluded from the external world and being a sanctioned economy, would not support that aggression. But we managed to register some progress in that area.
From your informed perspective, how then, and I say this here based on the word sanctions, how then would you attribute Zimbabwe's re-engagement agenda assimilating into the calmness that we see currently in the markets? Is that also an indicator in terms of the confidence that's being held outside of Zimbabwe in meeting specific reforms, but at the same time stabilizing its economy? I'll let you respond to that straight after this break. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back to the third and final segment of Economics 101, taking a very close look at the Zimbabwean economy in light of the 2023 elections and looking forward to this year. Joining me in studio is economic analyst Persistence Gwanyanya. Now, before we took the break, we're looking at sanctions being imposed on Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe's re-engagement, and as to whether this contributes towards as to whether the current stability in the markets is a reflection of investor confidence tied to Zimbabwe's re-engagement drive. Your assertion in that regard?
Re-engagement efforts are real from government, but more important, what would draw those that you want to re-engage to your shore is your deeds, what you are doing, and your record that you are creating. So if you are creating a record of managing the economy properly and resisting popular temptations, then you are also increasing your chances of re-engagement.
All right. Let's look at some social matters that will extend further. In his New Year's message to the nation, President Emmerson Mnangagwa urged Zimbabweans to safeguard the prevailing economic stability, maintain peace and desist from illegal activities as the nation prepares to hold harmonized elections this year. Outside of the importance of this call, it speaks to a culture of the Zimbabwean.
Yes.
In a plea from His Excellency for Zimbabweans to maintain economic stability implies that there are elements that contribute towards economic instability.
So clearly, we have gone through a period of protracted economic decay, and which has resulted in the structural or deep-seated structural challenges, some of them economic and financial, others non-economic and non-financial.
Yeah.
And dealing with these issues would take time because some of them are behavioral, which tend to develop over time and which have been attacking or causing our markets to become volatile.
Right.
So clearly, even the Reserve Bank did that when payments were made to suppliers and contractors some few weeks ago. They actually even tried to moral suasion the market to say, let us be calm. Stability is good for everyone in the economy. This is exactly what the president, I think, is saying, to say stability is good for everyone because the structure of our economy makes it vulnerable to attacks by elements in the economy who wield so much power in the economy because the economy is driven by a handful.
Right. It seems as though that there would be some collective bargaining that has taken place with regards to those who do drive the economy and those who govern the nation. One can't help but also look at the significance of the citizenry. Let's look at the market stability. Market stability contributing towards productivity within various sectors. This trickling down towards being commodities that are easily accessible in terms of price parity to the citizenry. would that then also not be a clear signifier of confidence to the general Zimbabwean as we're going forward in these elections?
It could be. What people want is they just want things to be in place,
Right.
in the right place. And when things are in the right place, they will naturally rally behind the government policies, and they are comfortable.
Right.
But if they are not comfortable, that's when they start to seek these other ways of making a living. So, but also, what people want is not necessarily we've gotten there, things have now improved, and they can identify, they can see the real change. But they are also interested in the direction, in the seriousness of the policy makers, the direction of the economy. When people start to see things getting back on rail, they naturally tend to want to cooperate, and their confidence level, their hopes are risen. So this is how I see we should take the people to. We should take to the people to where they believe again.
Right.
We should take to the people to where their hopes, right, are rejuvenated, to where their aspirations for a better Zimbabwe are promoted.
Right.
Yes, they need to start to see things happening. Not that we have gotten there, but they will be inspired by the journey we are traveling as an economy.
Would it be fair to ascertain that the political battle lines for this year's election are set around economic parameters?
I think they will be set around economic parameters. That will be key. What is the ruling party done to rebuild the economy?
Right.
Are they tangible things? That's what I personally think.
Right.
That people can identify with the ruling party.
Right.
The voice is coming out of the opposition to say this has not happened properly, and the alternative that they offer is what people should ordinarily be looking for.
Before I
in an
extend
election.
to the opposition component of an economic breakdown, those that seem to hold a higher influence in assessing that progress from government would be the employers. For now, the employers. If the employers are finding themselves seeing the economic position as being favorable, that then would be a reflection of confidence trickled down to those who we refer to as the employees. Expand for me there a bit if you can.
Yes. So the employers are more interested in survival and viability of their business.
Right.
Which speaks to the environment,
Yes.
stability in the environment, and even attraction of capital.
Right.
So I think you want to agree with me that unlike in the past, the shops are full of basic commodities.
Right.
There's
Priced in local
no
currency.
threat. There's no even priced in our local currency. There's not even threat of those running out. The fuel subsector, a solution has been found there.
Right.
But just like next door in Zambia, when you start now to focus on stability, you have to give in. There is a trade-off between stability and growth or activity, economic activity. People in Zambia are complaining currently. They are saying, yes, the currency is stabilized. It had gone post 1:20, but the economic activity is significantly slowed down. A similar situation could be said for Zimbabwe. But what I think is more important is stability. And a breakaway from the past is this stability is being achieved at the expense of growth and activity, which growth and activity in the past was not real, but was just fund of money.
Now let's look at some of those unscrupulous elements that do contribute towards the challenges. Do you think that with where we are, and I want to bring in as my final point, the opposition's argument against government when it comes to economic progress, because it seems to be that is the only, as I highlighted, economic parameter at which the political battlefield will be taking place. What then could be argued against government's current position in terms of the economic stability that is currently being experienced?
Yeah, in the past, before the deliberate measures were taken by government to deal with the procurement processes and the leakages therefrom,
right?
The voices against the injudicious management of the country's physical resources,
right,
could be
one could only look at the Auditor General's report to be able to begin a discussion from there. Right?
Yes, could be genuine. But following the measures that government is implementing and earnestly implementing, in my view, I think that issue is no longer there currently.
Right.
But let's give it time to see whether government is going to maintain the stance.
Yes.
But I've got a fundamental difference.
You're closing fundamental difference very quickly.
On currency. Currency. You know, there's always temptation to choose easier options when difficult ones are available. The difficult ones are normally the most effective.
Right.
So as I talk about that, I naturally want to reflect on the aspect of dollarization and de-dollarization.
Right.
I still maintain a currency need to use its own currency. This is why all economies, except a few that have been pushed out of this regime by mismanagement, are using other people's currencies. And the reasons for doing that are there documented, and they've been working. So there's always been a misconception that dollarization delivers. No, it's just a short-term measure. Yes.
Mr. Gwanyanya, we could speak for hours on end, and I know we'll be speaking to you at greater length as we progress during the course of the year. Thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to speaking to you again in future.
Thank you, my brother.
That's all the time that we had here today on our Economics 101. Send us your questions, comments, and your contributions on our social media platform at ZBC News Online. For now, pleasant view.